Hello everybody. In this screencast we're going to look at the FieldValue class. The FieldValue class allows you to indicate to the Firestore server what data you would like to store. For example, you could use the add something to an array or remove something from the array, or you could delete something. You can delete a value, you can increment, you can decrement, you can also add the server timestamp. So sometimes you want the server, when you are inserting a document, for example, in Firestore, and you want the server to indicate to set a value of one of the parameters or one of the attributes of the document as the server timestamp, not your current local client timestamp. You want the server timestamp. So we'll look at all of these. The increment, decrement, how to increment and how to decrement, how to add to an array and how to remove from an array, and how to set up the server timestamp. So what I did is I created a sample application. And this is the Firebase integration in it. Let's say, for example, we will do increment and decrement first. So to increment, we will use db, which is the instance. We'll create a collection. Let's say, for example, we call it, maybe posts, for example, posts, and then basically a document. And that document, I will not make it auto generate its ID. I'll just call it my document, and then I would like to set the data. So basically, to set the data, we always use the hash map, right? You remember we use the hash map. Let's say string, and that's gonna be object data equal new hash map. So that's the data, and then data, let's say, for example, dot put. And let's say, for example, what I'm trying to do here is that we'll create a collection, call it here, for example, posts, next, and then the document, I'll call it my document, my doc, right? And then here there is a field. Let's say this field is count, is a count field, and it's an integer, it's a number, let's say, for example, and it's 1. Here it is, and the count is 1. Good. So now what I'd like to do is I would like to update the count from 1. I wanted to increment it, right? So basically, to increment it, one option is to bring in this document, read the count value, and then increment it, and then set the count to be 1. Right. So what I'm going to do is a little bit different. I'm going to use the FieldValue approach. So to use the FieldValue approach, I'm going to set up the count to be, instead of saying it's count plus 1, I'll use FieldValue dot increment by 1. Okay. And basically that's what I'm doing, is that I'm just going to increment the value by 1. I point it to where the document is. I'll say, for example, update, and pass it the data. So every time I click the increment button, it's supposed to increment this number by 1. Let's run this and see. Okay. So basically, I click the increment button, and you can see that the value is being incremented. Every time I click, it's incrementing by 1. Perfect. That's how you increment. Now, how do you decrement? So I'm going to copy this code again, and there is a button decrement, and then basically, is there a decrement? So we go here, we do decrement. There is no decrement, there is only an increment. We'll do -1. We'll run this again. So increment by -1 is a decrement. Cool. So here we are. The count is now 9. I click on decrement once. Now the count is 8. Click on it again. Count is 7. So we handle the increment and decrement. The server timestamp, same story. We will copy the code again here, and I want the server timestamp. So basically, this is button server timestamp, and then let's, for example, created at FieldValue dot, and what I'm going to do is dot server timestamp. You just tell it, set the value here to be the server timestamp. Okay, run this. Here we are. I click on server timestamp, and you can see here that it inserts the server timestamp. This is the time at the server. Okay, here it is, the server timestamp. Okay, array union and array remove, these are very helpful. You know, for example, if we have, for example, who liked it, so likes, and for example, we can have an array and add it, so it's an empty array now. I have nothing inside it. Let's delete this. So I have an empty array. Okay, I'll copy this from here to here, and let's say, for example, I go here and say button and array union, and basically here is my likes, and basically I'm going to tell it that likes dot array union. You see here, you just pass it some objects and it's going to take care of inserting them. So let's say, for example, array, and I'm going to say Bob, for example, and when I click on that button, the array union, it will add Bob here. Here we are, array union, Bob is being added. If you click on it again, it's not going to add another Bob because it guarantees uniqueness. See here, I'm clicking on it, nothing is happening. Now if I want to add Bob 1, let's run it again. When I click on array union, it adds Bob 1. You can add multiple. For example, you can say I want Bob 1, Bob 2. You can add multiple because it had the mechanism of dot dot dot. So basically you are passing an array, Bob 3, and so on. So now when we run this, you'll see now it's going to add array union, and here it is. It added Bob 1, Bob 2, Bob 3. If you click on it again, nothing is going to happen. That because it's a union, takes care of uniqueness. Good. So now this is the one. You can also add, let's say, button remove from the array. Let's remove all these 3 and run this again. So instead of array union, you do array remove. Same story, exactly like the union, but you pass it the objects that you want to remove. Here it is. I click on array remove, and all the 3 were removed. Array union, array remove, array union, increment, decrement. All right. So you could see that this field value is very useful, and it allows you to indicate specific operations to be done on the server side, like for example incrementing, decrementing, also adding the server timestamp, and managing these arrays. This is very helpful. These arrays, sometimes likes, sometimes tags. If you're looking at tweets, for example, tags can be also embedded here. All right, please let me know if you have any questions.